thank you for joining me. Just looking at your faces right now, seems like we're having a kind of a family reunion and recognize a lot of the faces. And to be honest, this is one of the reasons I organized this this webinar, because as most of you have been locked down for the last a couple of weeks at home, and I felt this need of human connection. And of course, I have my family, don't get me wrong, my family is cool, and I have my friends to whom I can link on Zoom. But being a trainer and a teacher, I'm kind of addicted to this kind of performance interaction, as I would call it. That was reason one. Reason two was procrastination itself. I procrastinate a lot. And one of the hacks I discovered a couple of years ago is that the best thing that you can do with procrastination is to procrastinate with something that's useful, that's productive. So one of the things that I have to learn, again, throughout the last couple of weeks is to move everything I do online. And I decided that this might be a good opportunity to procrastinate with something that's actually useful. And finally, building this setup was a very, very important challenge for me. And sharing some of my experiences in staying self-motivated at home was something that I found to be very much useful right now. So guys, to those of you who are considering recording it, you have a green light to do that, but please do not share it. You can just do it for your private use. So for the last couple of weeks, you've probably seen some Twitter updates and memes describing Isaac Newton as somebody who used the time of the Great London Plague to discover calculus. And that's a great story. But the thing is that Newton did not have a wife, did not have children, and did not have an active Netflix account, which I believe to be very, very important factor in us having more challenges in achieving our goals. So today we're going to talk about basic psychological models for motivation. We're going to address how these models can inform our decisions when working from home and facilitate achieving goals while being constantly distracted by the world around us. So I would like to start with asking you for a favor. If you could just close your eyes for a sec. Okay, close your eyes. It is as embarrassing for me as it is for you. Okay, so bear with me for a moment. Close your eyes, okay? Close your eyes, and now imagine that you have achieved what you've always wanted while using the quarantine to the fullest possible extent. You finally get to finish that book you've been writing for months or years, okay? You have rekindled love with your partner, okay? Or I don't know, you have renovated the house. Finally, you've always wanted to do that, but I want you to think about it as clearly as possible. I want you to see your book on the bestsellers list on Amazon, okay? And how happy that makes you feel. I want you to visualize the beautiful new kitchen that you've always dreamt about and you've only seen in IKEA catalogs, okay? And I want you to feel the warm embrace of your partner as they tell you, I love you, okay? Do you have it? Do you have it in your mind visualized? Okay, so stay with it as long as possible because it's not going to happen. Okay, open your eyes, please. So the exercise that you've just experienced is one of the most popular goal attainment exercises that a lot of trainers and coaches use, and it's called visualization. Okay, the idea of visualization is that if you imagine achieving the goal very vividly, very clearly, if you imagine the emotions that come from achieving the goal, it's going to get more likely for you to actually achieve the goal. The power of the image, of the visualization, will drive you through the obstacles and make you more likely to succeed. Well, the problem with that assumption is that it's absolutely bullshit. Okay, and in 1991, Professor Gabrielle Oettingen from New York University invited 25 female participants to her laboratory and asked them to set goals for weight loss for the next year. And the thing that she did is that she divided them into two groups and asked one of them to visualize success, right? To visualize that they actually succeeded in losing weight, the way that they look in this summer dress, and how they feel in their own bodies. So basically visualizing success. She asked the other group to visualize the effort, the hardships, the failure, when they actually go and they just, you know, look through the window of a local bakery, and they go in and they grab that cupcake. Okay, so visualizing success versus visualizing effort. And after a year, what Oettingen found out is that the second group that visualized effort and failure actually dropped 10 kilograms more than the first group that visualized success. And think about weight, right? Weight is a very objective measurement. In psychological research, in social science research, one of the challenges that we are facing is that we are using a lot of report measurements. In this case, we are talking about an objective measurement. So not only visualizing your dreams is not making them more likely, your dreams are actually is what making you fail. So it's about 5 minutes in this webinar, and you're probably thinking, oh shit, like this is going to be a motivational webinar, and right now I'm just hearing that I'm supposed to forget my dreams. Well, not necessarily. You see, I'm a very simple man, and I also would like to, you know, write that book, renovate the house, rekindle my marriage, and everything. It's just that I would like to do that using as verified and evidence-based practices as possible. And people like me, people who are trying to bridge the gap between evidence and practice, are in this unique perspective, because me being a psychologist and social scientist, working with organizations, with teams on a daily basis, trying to make them as effective as possible. People like me are trying to use both the power of evidence and practice and experimentation to actually find solutions that work. And this is the entire reason of me wanting to talk to you today, is to share both evidence-based practices that we know that work generally, but also to share some of my personal experiments and experiences that you might find useful in you overcoming the challenges of being distracted while working from home. So you want to motivate yourself to achieve goals at home. It's incredibly challenging, as all of you probably know. In my personal case, I know that every case is different, but in my personal case, I generally don't like to work from home. I get very easily distracted. One of the most distracting things for me is the fridge. The bare existence of refrigerator is what distracts me. So I do everything that's in my power to leave my apartment 6 a.m. and just work from the cafes, from my office, anywhere but home. So working from home is a challenge for me in itself, but working at home with my kids, with my family, with everything that is going on is like double effort and challenge. So in this situation, we need to think about the models that are the most useful to find the new process of working from home. And psychology has discovered for the last couple of decades that the way that we think about processes like motivation, like effort, like sleep, is very consequential to what we do in our day-to-day lives. For example, mindsets about getting old influence not only the effort that people put into staying in shape, for example, but they also influence how long they live. Mindsets about stress and whether stress is something useful or not influence our proactive strategies towards stress. And mindsets about motivation and the way that we think about motivation and goal achievement influence the actions that we undertake in order to achieve these goals. So today I'm going to start with a very simple model of motivation that is based on a couple of frameworks of motivation in psychology. And then I'm going to use that to give you a couple of examples of the things that you might do at home to motivate yourself in these trying times. So right now I would like you to imagine a plane. And now imagine a mountain and a donkey. And imagine that you want to get on this mountain on a donkey. Are you still with me? Okay, bear with me for a moment. So the idea here is that while it is in itself extremely difficult to get on the mountain, it's even more difficult to get on the mountain on a donkey. So let me try to explain what this metaphor is all about. So not for decades, but for ages, philosophers, social scientists, psychologists have problematized the phenomenon that we all experience on a day-to-day basis, which is this divide between our two selves, between our rational self and our intuitive self. Okay, between our surface processing and deep processing, between our automatic decision-making process and between our deliberate decision-making process. Those of you that have read Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, know that he calls it System 1 and System 2. One of my favorite comparisons is between your evening self and your morning self. Okay, so your evening self is the self that has plans, that has ambitions. Your evening self tells, okay, I'm getting up in the morning and I'm writing that book. I'm renovating the house. And then your morning self wakes up and he or she says, oh my God, this is so warm. Like this place has been designed solely for me to stay here until the end of days, okay? I'm gonna do it tomorrow. So in our metaphor, okay, the jockey, the person on the donkey is your rational self. And you want to go and achieve the goal, go on the mountaintop. And your donkey is your irrational, intuitive self, your morning self. And they get very easily distracted. They have their own will. You know how stubborn and capricious donkeys are, I guess, right? So you want to achieve the goal. You want to climb the mountain on a donkey, which is almost impossible. You can use some tricks to do that. But here's the thing. It's getting even more complicated than that, because as we know from cognitive science and neuroscience, is that our focus works differently at the beginning of the motivational process and in the middle of the motivational process. So as we start, as we are choosing the goal that we want to achieve, we're focusing on the goal. But as soon as we are getting closer and as soon as the effort appears, the obstacle appears, our focus is solely on the obstacle, right? The donkey cannot see past the obstacle. So we focus on that and not on the goal itself. So how to maintain this balance, right? How to find the balance between the goal and the effort. What to focus on, what to visualize, and how to use this is what we're going to focus on right now. As you're losing the perspective, what are the things that you can do? So the first thing that you can do is to choose the right mountain, which is choose the right goal. And there's an entire domain of science of goal setting that we're not going to go deep into right now. But the idea is that the more difficult the goal is and the more specific the goal is, the more likely you are to achieve it, right? So having a goal of, putting an extra effort or trying really hard to work on that book is not a good goal. It's not a good goal. It needs to be very, very specific. Also, if you have goals that are not difficult enough, you're not going to motivate the donkey, right? So it needs to be difficult, specific. We're not going to go into details right now. A more interesting thing that you can do, and a domain that is more or less easily accessible to all of us right now, is to try to design an easy trail. And the idea here is that you use environmental design to help your goal achievement processes. So for example, in my case, as I know that I get very easily distracted, right now I use the advice of Haruki Murakami, Vonnegut, and Ernest Hemingway, and I try to get up very early in the morning at 6 o'clock and just use these 2-hour window before my family wakes up to just focus on complex tasks, on usually in my case is writing. What you can also use is to use some software that stops all distractions. I'm using this to block access to social media on my computer and on my phone, and it's also very useful in me not being too distracted. But right now we're in the situation, especially if you have kids, that they are the main source of distraction. So what I'm using for that as an environmental design is that I'm using a very, very old method for productivity, which is the Pomodoro technique, which is working in 25 minutes block and then having a 5 minutes break. But I'm using it with my kids, which is extremely effective. So I'm saying that right now for 25 minutes, and I'm setting, I'm using Google Home to set a timer. For 25 minutes, I'm working. And now for the next 5 minutes, my attention is going to be 100% with you guys. They are 6-year-old and 3 years old, and surprisingly enough, I'm amazed by that myself, it works, right? So using Pomodoro technique, but doing it with your kids is a way to design an easy trail for your goal achievement process. But the final thing that you can do, and this is what I'm going to focus on right now, is to whoop the donkey. Okay, so what I mean by that is that there are some tools out there, one tool especially that is extremely effective at motivating the donkey to achieve what you want. So whooping the donkey, or, there's another word for donkey, which is an ass. So whooping the ass is the idea that I'm gonna share with you right now. How do you whoop your donkey? And to do that, you can use one of the most effective methods for goal achievement that has been designed by Professor Gabriel Oettingen that we mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, which is a 4-phase process. The idea is that you start with a wish, then you go with the outcome, you visualize the obstacles, and then you finish with a plan. So first step of the whoop process of whooping the donkey is to having a clear, achievable goal. The second part is visualizing the outcome. And this is as close as this method comes to traditional visualization. You are asked to imagine as vividly as possible the best possible outcome of achieving the goal. The third thing is that you visualize the obstacles. So the next question is, okay, now that you're somewhere here with achieving the goal, like really go down deep at the worst parts, in the worst parts of your soul, and visualize what is it inside you that stops you from achieving the goal. And you need to visualize this. And these 3 steps, by the way, are themselves very effective in helping you to achieve the goal. They are called mental contrasting. mental contrasting, and this is what Oettingen started with, the idea of mental contrasting. But then there's the fourth part, which is the plan part, which is the implementation intentions part. This, again, in itself is a very effective method for motivating yourself to achieve goals. And it means that you are trying to hack your habit formation mechanisms in coming up with algorithms for your mind, essentially saying, if this, then that. If this happens next time, I'm going to do this. So in case of WOOP, the idea is to come up with the most effective reaction to an obstacle. The next time the obstacle appears, I'm going to do that. You start with a goal, then you visualize the outcome, then visualize the obstacles, and then you come up with a plan, if this, then that. The next time that an obstacle appears, I'm going to do that. This very simple method has proved to be very effective in a variety of settings, in educational settings, relationship settings, exercising and work has been used for that a lot. But I want to show you exactly how it works, because right now it might seem a little bit abstract. So let's just imagine that my wish is to stop eating my children's candy during the day. So this hypothetical me, not me, no, not at all, not me per se, but this hypothetical me wants to stop eating candy from his kids. So this is the goal. And my best outcome that I imagine is to feel better generally in my body, and that my children will not look at me with pity. I don't know if you know the feeling, but you know, if your kid comes to you and asks you, "Daddy, where's the chocolate?" and then you have to look down on them and say, "In my belly, honey." That's not the best thing that you can say to your own kid, I imagine, because this is completely not about me, of course. So my main obstacle is I approach the candy drawer and reach for the candy unreflectively. As I said, the fridge and the candy drawer are the two things that stop you from working from home on a regular basis. It's just, I'm procrastinating with eating. I can't stop myself. It's just, I have zero willpower. So I just go there, I just wake up and, oh shit, like chocolate is inside my body right now and I have no idea how that happened. So this is the obstacle. And here, so these three parts are mental contrasting. In itself, a very effective self-motivation method for a reason that I don't quite understand. But the final element of that is implementation intentions. If I approach the candy drawer the next time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a small cherry tomato. So that's the first thing that I tried to use in this particular scenario. And the idea is here that if you want to change your habits, you should switch the reaction with something that is, well, at least somewhat as rewarding as the previous reaction, right? So chocolate versus a very sweet cherry tomato might be a good idea. So I completely failed in this strategy, but it was an experiment. And this is something that I strongly encourage you to do when using WOOP. Experiment with different implementation intentions, different reactions. So my next try was to try to note every snack that I'm eating in MyFitnessPal, which is the fitness app I'm using. That worked a little bit better, but it wasn't perfect. And the final thing that worked for me very, very, very well is to use a very old psychological hack, which is to tell myself in a situation like this that I can have it later. So it's not depending on my sheer willpower alone, which I have none. It's to say to myself, I'm going to have it later. Like I'm not stopping myself from eating it. I'm just having it in an hour, 2 or 3. And this has worked wonders to me personally. It doesn't have to work for you, but to me it worked perfectly. I'm not forced to tell my children that I've eaten their chocolate reserves for the pandemic anymore. So here's the idea: you whoop your donkey with starting with the wish, then visualizing the outcome, visualizing the obstacle, and then coming up with the plan of the next time you're going to react when the challenge appears. And as with personal hygiene, you need to do that regularly. right? You wouldn't expect somebody to be clean just by washing their hands once a week, especially in this situation. And you wouldn't expect somebody to stay self-motivated and achieve their goals without whooping their donkey on a regular basis. By the way, Whoop is an app. There's an app for that, which is a very, very good news. You can download it both from Apple Store and from Google Play. I'm going to send you all the links to all the apps and websites and the tools I've been talking for the last 20 minutes or so in a separate email, probably within the hour. So here's the idea. If you want to achieve goals in the times of zombie apocalypse or whatever, first you need to cut through the bullshit of what the regular motivational books tell you. Second, you need to abandon your dreams. And the third thing that you need to do is that you need to whoop your donkey. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Thank you for participating in this experimental webinar about self-motivation in times of zombie apocalypse. And now we have some time for Q&A. Stay as long as you want. We have definitely 10 minutes or so. Again, just to be clear, I'm going to send you everything I talked about, including the presentation, including the tools, including the links to the app within an hour. And now, if you have any questions or comments, you can use the chat box for that. And you can turn on your microphone right now and just share your thoughts, experiences, or questions, because this is definitely time to do that.